Okay, welcome back again. This is part number 4. Now we discussed about the boiling water experience or case. Now let's get another, and we learned that despite the fact for any innovation, despite of the fact of advantages that it might have, it won't necessarily get adopted. So let's take an example, another example in which an effective innovation that is beneficial, yet it did not actually got to diffuse. It is similar to what we discussed before on the diffusion of QWERTY keyboard. Now, let's get another example, which is like what do you call controlling scurvy. So in the British Navy, scurvy is kind of a disease that is maybe caused by the lack of vitamin C, and it causes like bleeding from the skin, and feeling tired, etc. So it's kind of basically before it was a common disease for the people who used to sailors, for example, sail for long voyages. So in the past, the long sea voyages, scurvy killed more people than wars and accidents. Okay, so again, long sea voyages in the past, when people go far away from the families for 2-3 months, they would have they used to experience scurvy disease. For example, Vasco da Gama, 100 sailor died of scurvy out of 160. So he had 160 people in his ship, but out of 160, 100 died from scurvy disease when he went for the Cape of Good Hope. In 1601, Captain James Lancaster did an experiment by using lemon juice, and he believed that lemon juice would prevent scurvy disease, So what he did, like an experiment, these days you would call it like a social, experimental design. The trip was from England to India, so he took with him four ships. The first one, we may call it like a treatment group. He asked the sailors to take 3 teaspoons of lemon juice. They were very healthy. It did work. But the other 3 ships, they did not take the lemon juice. You might call it control group. Now, 110 out of 278 died. Then he concluded that lemon juice is very effective to, or is a very effective cure of the scurvy disease. Now, British Navy didn't adopt. Now, despite of his experiment, despite that he did it scientifically and it showed effectiveness, despite of his experiment, British Navy did not adopt citrus juice. Why is that? Why, there is a good thing. It is a good experiment, It shows positive signs. Why they didn't? They did after 150 years. In 1947, another experiment was repeated by Dr. Lind to confirm the experiment that was done by James Lancaster. He just wanted, Dr. Lind wanted to verify the findings of Lancaster. Although it is part of his, findings, yet the British Navy adopted in 1795, 48 years later. Okay. Now the question is here, why the British Navy authority did not adopt the innovation? It was not very cheap, only lemon juice, very effective. why they didn't adopt it for different reasons here. Because of probably, according to Rogers, competing remedies for scurvy were invented or discovered. I mean, Dr. Lind was not a prominent public figure in naval medicine. Now, yes, keep in mind that Dr. Lind was not a prominent public figure, and that's why we are talking about if you want your innovation to be adopted or your public campaign to be diffused, you need the support of the opinion leaders, like influencers, if you may want to call them. Another thing, like Dr. Lind's findings were not publicized. Yes, so you need to publicize, you need to be visible. Your campaign must reach all the people out there, your targeted audience, otherwise nobody would know about your innovation. Another thing, new ships were developed. Now, we go back again to the repeating theme of this class, that benefits of innovation does not guarantee its diffusion. See the Devora keyboard, for example. We discussed this before. Now, let's go back again to all these elements of the main elements of diffusion. Now, as per Rogers' definition, that diffusion is a process of which an innovation, now I'm circling the keywords, innovation is communicated through channels over time and among the numbers of social system. Now, this is the main key terms. Let's explain each one. The first one, innovation, is here. Now, the innovation. Okay, I want you to go back and read the lecture notes. I will just go quickly because you know what is innovation. We have discussed about that. Basically, innovation is an idea, practice, or an object that is perceived as new by an individual or other unit of adaptation. Okay, now that is what is innovation. Now the question is, what counts as new? Now, according to Roger, what counts as new doesn't have to include new knowledge in it. As long as a person, an end receiver or user, perceive it as a new thing first time she sees it, then it is new to him. This is according to Rogers. According to Rogers also, researchers who are interested in studying diffusion ask important questions. Now, for researchers who are interested in studying diffusion, what kind of questions they try to answer? You need to know this because this is part of your group project. They are interested in knowing how earlier adapters differ from later adapters. They want to know what affects the rate of adaptation. The role of perceived attributes of innovation. We'll discuss what are the attributes of innovation in a while. Why is that the S-shaped diffusion curve takes off at, now S-shape, we will see it. This is S-shape. Why is that about 10 to 20% adoption rate when interpersonal networks are activated? Now, that leads to critical mass. This is very, very, I want you guys to highlight any public campaign, any hashtag that you want to diffuse is basically, it has to do with interpersonal networks. And that's why we are discussing how to analyze communication networks in this class. Let me give you an example of interpersonal networks. Whenever I used to drive back home, I would see a big billboard about an app of one of the government organizations. You know, every day I would see it. I would see that ad, but about that app. But I never downloaded the app. For almost more than 6-8 months, I didn't download it. So with that government institution, to have that billboard, it is a way of publicizing, promoting the application. They want people to download, to use it. Now, for me, with the billboard awareness, I got an awareness. I got an awareness, but I never had an interest to download it. After 8 months, I think, I downloaded the app. You know why? Because from a close friend. He said, hey, Adil, why don't you use this? It's very interesting. I'm like, yeah, I see it every time. But I ended up adapting it because of a close contact, interpersonal network. So basically, guys, that shows the importance of interpersonal network. Okay. The innovation. Now, let's start the first one. What is innovation? Now, innovation is, according to Rogers, he uses technology and innovation as interchangeable for him. So technology is a way of uncertainty reduction. I mean, life is about uncertainty reduction. People adapt new innovation by reducing uncertainty. Take an example, you want to buy an iPad, or let's say you want to buy a new phone, and you're like, but you don't know whether it's good or not. Yes, you'll go and read reviewers of people who bought it before, but believe me, most likely you'll go and ask your close contacts, close network, your own circle. You'll ask them, hey guys, what do you think about this phone? Is it good? What about the battery? You will ask their own experiences, and most likely you will be influenced by your own close circle. You tend to reduce that uncertainty by your interpersonal network. Now, the innovation decision how do you make a decision whether to buy something or not? How do you make a decision whether to adapt an innovation or not? How do you make a decision whether to activate and retweet about a hashtag or not? So that decision is essentially an information seeking and information processing activity in which an individual is motivated to reduce uncertainty about the advantages and disadvantages of the innovation. I want to go back and read that lecture notes. Yes, and this is how it is. Whenever you want to make a decision, you are seeking for information. And why do you seek for information? Because you want to reduce uncertainty. The information you receive, you process that. Then you compare advantages, disadvantages. Then you make a decision. Now, what questions do individuals usually ask before adapting? Yes, they ask about advantages, disadvantages, Then there is also, go check the lecture notes. There is about technology cluster. Usually the innovations when they get clustered together are more likely to be adapted. I want you to go and check it out, the notes about technology cluster. Let me stop here, and then I will take it over from the innovation, the perceived attributes of innovation, my next part.